Every Sunday, a city is spellbound by miracles, the blind see, the sick are healed, and the crowds roar in awe. At the center of it all is a preacher whose powers seem otherworldly, whose words can move mountains. But what if it's all an illusion? What if beneath the miracles lies a secret so dark, it could shatter the fate of thousands? This is the story of a relentless search for truth, a daring exposé, and a web of lies unraveling in the most spectacular way. Who will emerge victorious, the one who built an empire on deception or the one determined to tear it down? Dive into this gripping tale of faith, betrayal, and redemption. Stay tuned to Savannah Storytime, where every story leaves you on the edge of your seat. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more unforgettable tales. The bustling city of Jumbo never slept, but every Sunday morning, even the rowdiest corners of the metropolis fell silent. Why? Because the celestial haven of divine light was about to hold its weekly spectacle, a service that could rival a Nollywood blockbuster. At the heart of it all stood Prophet Barnabas, affectionately known as Papa Revelation. He wasn't your ordinary preacher. Oh no, Barnabas wore tailored suits so blinding they could double as disco balls. His smile could sell sand in the Sahara, and his sermons, pure poetry. The Lord is telling me, he would boom, pacing the pulpit like a lion, that today is your day of breakthrough. His congregation erupted into cheers, women ululating and men stomping so hard the pews threatened to collapse. But don't get it twisted. This wasn't just a church. This was an empire. The choir, dressed in pristine white robes, sang like they were auditioning for heaven's top spot. Cameras panned across the crowd, catching people in tears, their hands raised high. The weekly service was broadcast live to millions, with dramatic captions like, "Watch how blind woman sees after 20 years." This particular Sunday was special. Rumors swirled that a miracle was about to happen, the kind of miracle that put other miracles to shame. Barnabas took the stage, his arms outstretched as if he were parting the Red Sea. "My brothers and sisters," he thundered, "the Lord has sent me a vision." He paused dramatically, letting the tension build like a drum roll. A blind man, yes, a man who has not seen the light of day since he was a boy, will see again. Gasps swept through the congregation. A man in dark sunglasses and a walking stick was escorted to the front. The congregation buzzed with excitement. "It's true," one woman whispered. "He's from the next village, completely blind." Barnabas approached the man with the flair of a performer nearing the climax of his act. "Do you believe the Lord can heal you?" he asked, his voice quivering with emotion. "Yes, Papa," the man replied, though his voice wavered as if unsure whether he was answering Barnabas or auditioning for his life. Barnabas placed his hands on the man's head, squeezed his eyes shut, and began to pray with the fervor of someone trying to crack open heaven itself. "In the name of Jesus, receive your sight," he roared. The choir launched into a thunderous rendition of "I Can See Clearly Now." And just like that, the blind man opened his eyes. "I can see," he cried, stumbling backward in awe. The crowd exploded in cheers. Women wept, children clapped, and one man even fainted from excitement. But somewhere near the back of the hall, a young woman named Eunice wasn't cheering. Instead, she frowned, her journalist instincts tingling. She'd seen that man before, wasn't he the one selling roasted corn at the market last week? Could it be? Eunice had been in the church for 3 weeks, but not for faith or miracles. She was there for revenge. 1 year back, Eunice's grandmother, Mama BC, had been her entire world. With both her parents gone, lost in a car accident when Eunice was just a child, Mama BC had raised her with love, sacrifice, and wisdom. Despite her meager earnings as a seamstress, Mama BC had ensured Eunice got an education, even sending her to another state to pursue a professional program. But during Eunice's final year of studies, Mama BC fell gravely ill. A devastating cancer diagnosis meant she needed an expensive operation. Eunice had scraped together every kobo she could, sending her grandmother her entire savings and urging her to get the surgery. Instead, Mama BC had turned to Prophet Barnabas. Papa Revelation said the operation isn't necessary, her grandmother had said during one of their phone calls, her voice filled with hope. He said the Lord will heal me if I sow my seed of faith. The seed had been all the money Eunice sent, everything her grandmother had left. Mama BC, clinging to faith, had handed it over to Barnabas during a Sunday service, weeping as she laid it at the altar. Barnabas had prayed. The operation never happened. And a month later, Mama BC was gone. The grief had been unbearable, but the anger burned brighter. Eunice had vowed to expose Barnabas for the fraud he was. She would make his empire fall, brick by deceitful brick, and make his name synonymous with shame. This wasn't just journalism for Eunice, it was justice. Behind the scenes, things were less divine and more businesslike. The so-called blind man, real name Chidi, was sitting in Barnabas' office now, sunglasses off and munching on a plate of jollof rice. "You did good today," Barnabas said, leaning back in his plush leather chair. His diamond-encrusted watch glinted under the office's chandelier. "Thank you, Papa," Chidi mumbled through a mouthful of rice. "Same time next week." Barnabas waved him off. "Just don't be seen around here too much. People talk." Back in the church, Mama Blessing, a formidable market woman with a voice like a trumpet, was basking in the afterglow of the miracle. She turned to her friend, Agnes. "Did you see that? Papa Revelation is truly the mouthpiece of God." Agnes nodded, but then her gaze turned thoughtful. "Mama Blessing, you've been sowing seed in this church for 3 years. Has your market business expanded like Papa prophesied?" Mama Blessing hesitated. "Well, no. But it's coming. You can't rush the Lord." Agnes raised an eyebrow. Let's hope so." Eunice, meanwhile, had made up her mind. Something about Papa Revelation didn't sit right. She decided to dig deeper, beginning her investigation by asking questions around the market. The roasted corn seller, the supposed blind man, was suspiciously absent. Eunice's gut told her this was only the beginning of a much larger story. Jumbo City had grown used to the splendor of Prophet Barnabas' services, but no one knew the price he paid to maintain his divine reputation. Beneath the polished sermons and miraculous healings was a secret so dark that even the prophet himself could barely stomach it. It was a quiet night in Barnabas' opulent mansion on the outskirts of the city. The prophet sat on his gold-plated sofa, flipping through the latest reports on church donations. The numbers were impressive, but he frowned. The Marine King's messenger had not visited in weeks, and that usually meant one thing: the covenant needed to be renewed. As if summoned by his thoughts, the air in the room grew cold. The chandelier flickered. A shadow stretched across the floor, shifting and twisting until it formed the silhouette of a man, or rather, something resembling one. The messenger's face was smooth and featureless, its voice a chilling blend of whispers and thunder. "Barnabas," it hissed, "you grow complacent." The prophet stiffened but kept his composure. "I've been faithful," he replied, his voice steady. "The ministry is thriving. The offerings are flowing." The messenger moved closer, its shadowy form curling around Barnabas like smoke. "Faithful, yes, but power comes with a cost. It is time for another sacrifice." Barnabas clenched his fist. He knew this moment would come, but it didn't make it any easier. "What do you require?" he asked, though the question felt more like a plea. The messenger's voice dropped to a menacing whisper. "The lifeblood of a pure soul. The younger, the better. Bring it to the river at midnight, or your power will wither like a forgotten prayer." And just like that, the room returned to normal. Barnabas sat in silence, the weight of the messenger's words pressing down on him. He had sacrificed much to get to where he was, his innocence, his relationships, his peace. But this was different. The next day, Barnabas called his assistant, Akpan, into his study. Akpan, he began, leaning forward in his chair, we need to prepare for a special prayer session tonight. Akpan's face lit up. Oh, Papa, is it another midnight vigil? Should I bring the fog machine and the choir? Barnabas sighed. No, Akpan. This is different. Quiet. Private. Akpan nodded eagerly, though his confusion was evident. Private. Oh, I understand. A VIP session for the big donors. Before Barnabas could correct him, Akpan added, should I bring the goat now or later? Barnabas froze. What goat? The one I saw tied outside. Mama Blessing brought it as a sacrifice for her business breakthrough. She said it's spotless, just as you like. Barnabas massaged his temples. Akpan, please. Just stay out of trouble tonight. Akpan saluted with all the seriousness of a soldier preparing for battle. Yes, Papa. Trouble will not see me. Meanwhile, Eunice had made a breakthrough of her own. After days of discreet inquiries, she discovered that many of Barnabas' so-called miracles followed a peculiar pattern. The crippled man healed last Sunday. He was spotted dancing at a wedding the week before. The woman who claimed her barren womb was opened. A child actor had been rented for her testimony. Determined to expose the truth, Eunice staked out Barnabas' mansion that evening. She hid in the bushes near the river that ran behind his property, clutching her camera like a lifeline. If there was a secret to be uncovered, she was determined to find it. At the stroke of midnight, Barnabas emerged from his mansion, dressed in a flowing white robe. He carried a small bundle wrapped in red cloth, and his steps were slow, deliberate, as if each one dragged him closer to his doom. Eunice's heart raced as she watched him approach the river at the back of his mansion. She zoomed in with her camera, her hands trembling. Suddenly, the air around Barnabas began to shimmer. His movements grew fluid, unnatural, as though he were a puppet on invisible strings. The river's surface rippled, though there was no wind. From the depths, a figure began to rise, a woman with serpentine features, her body adorned with scales that gleamed like moonlight. The Marine Queen. Eunice stifled a gasp, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. Barnabas knelt before the creature, holding out the bundle. Great Queen, he murmured, his voice shaking, I bring this offering as a sign of my loyalty. The queen hissed, her voice both melodic and menacing. Your loyalty has kept you powerful, prophet. But beware, fail me, and you shall taste ruin. She took the bundle and sank back into the water, leaving Barnabas kneeling on the shore. The river stilled, and the night grew quiet once more. As Barnabas returned to his mansion, the weight of his actions pressed heavier than ever. Eunice, still hidden in the bushes, reviewed the footage on her camera. She had seen enough to know that Papa Revelation's miracles weren't just fake, they were rooted in something far darker. The following days, Eunice sat at her cluttered desk, piecing together her story, connecting the dots between Barnabas' staged miracles, the midnight rituals, and the river behind his mansion. She even tracked down Chidi, the fake blind man, offering him a small bribe to spill the beans. Papa just told me to wear sunglasses and look confused, Chidi admitted. It's good business. He paid me in jollof rice and $10. No one in my generation has ever touched dollars, he exclaimed. With the evidence mounting, Eunice prepared to release her exposé. But she knew she needed more, a smoking gun that would leave no room for doubt. Back at the mansion, Akpan was on his usual rounds of causing unintended chaos. While organizing the miracle props, a bag of fake crutches, empty oil bottles, and mirrors meant for spiritual reflection, he stumbled across a strange artifact hidden in Barnabas' office, a golden chalice etched with serpentine designs. "What's this?" Akpan muttered, turning it over in his hands. Unbeknownst to him, the chalice was a key part of Barnabas' rituals with the Marine Queen. Without it, the covenant would be incomplete. But Akpan, true to form, thought it was a fancy wine cup. He placed it on a table in the church's storeroom, right next to the snacks for the choir rehearsal. When Barnabas realized the chalice was missing, panic set in. "Akpan," he roared, storming through the mansion. "Where is the golden cup from my office?" Akpan scratched his head. "Golden cup? I don't know, sir." Akpan had forgotten he had kept it near the chin-chin in the storeroom. Barnabas' face turned a shade of red that would put ripe tomatoes to shame as he walked out panicking. Meanwhile, at church, members began whispering among themselves. "Have you noticed Papa never performs miracles on people we know?" one woman asked. "Or how he always needs money for special offerings," another added. Suspicion turned into grumbling, and grumbling into quiet rebellion. The once blind loyalty of the congregation began to waver, and even the choir started making jokes during rehearsal. "What's next?" one tenor quipped. "A miracle where Papa multiplies our offerings into his bank account." That night, Barnabas knelt by the river, the missing chalice weighing heavily on his mind. As the water shimmered, the Marine Queen emerged, her serpentine eyes narrowing with displeasure. "Barnabas," she hissed, her voice like the rustling of dead leaves. "You grow careless. Your chalice, your anchor, is missing." Barnabas stammered, "I'll retrieve it, great queen. Please, grant me more time." The queen's gaze darkened. "You have until the next full moon. Fail me, and you will lose everything." As she sank back into the depths, Barnabas stumbled home, his mind racing. He needed to secure his empire, but how? The next Sunday, Barnabas prepared for another grand service, determined to distract the congregation from their doubts. But as he took the stage, Eunice slipped into the back, her camera ready. She had heard whispers about the chalice and planned to use its disappearance to unravel Barnabas' web of lies. Meanwhile, Akpan, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing, was handing out chin-chin to choir members, alongside the golden chalice. As the choir prepared to sing the opening hymn, Akpan proudly carried a tray of chin-chin to the pulpit for refreshments. Among the crispy snacks sat the golden chalice, glinting under the church's bright lights. The choir stared in disbelief, but Akpan, ever clueless, grinned as if he'd solved the world's problems. In the congregation, Eunice's sharp eyes caught the chalice immediately. She zoomed her camera in, capturing its intricate serpentine designs. "Gotcha," she whispered. Barnabas, mid-sermon, spotted the chalice out of the corner of his eye and nearly choked on his words. "Akpan," he hissed under his breath. "Yes, Papa." Akpan whispered back, still holding the tray. "Take that away." Barnabas gestured wildly toward the chalice. "But Papa," Akpan said, "the choir said it's perfect for communion. See how shiny it is." The congregation stirred as they noticed the commotion. Whispers rippled through the crowd. "What's happening up there?" someone asked. Barnabas forced a wide smile. "Brethren, let us focus on the message," he said, his voice tight. "Akpan, remove the tray of blessings." Akpan finally complied, though not without fumbling the chalice and almost dropping it. The tension was palpable, but Barnabas powered through, launching into a fiery sermon about obedience and faithfulness, words that now seemed to weigh heavily on his own shoulders. As the sermon continued, Eunice quietly left her seat and made her way toward the choir room. She knew the chalice would end up there. When she arrived, Akpan was busy stuffing chin-chin into his mouth, the chalice resting on a table beside him. "Excuse me," Eunice said, feigning politeness. "I'm part of the media team." Papa asked me to retrieve the chalice for some special shots. Akpan, his mouth full, nodded enthusiastically. Oh, of course. Take it. It's heavy, though. Eunice picked up the chalice, its weight surprisingly symbolic, and slipped it into her bag. Thank you, she said, disappearing before Akpan could ask any questions. Back on stage, Barnabas was trying to salvage the service. The Lord has shown me a revelation, he declared, his voice rising above the murmurs. There is someone here today with a heavy heart. You have been carrying a secret burden, something you fear will destroy you. The congregation fell silent, leaning forward in anticipation. That person, Barnabas continued, must sow a seed of faith today. A great offering that will bring divine deliverance. Mama Blessing stood up, arms akimbo. Papa, is it me? Because I've sown seed after seed, and my yam business is still struggling. Maybe the Lord forgot my address. The congregation erupted in laughter, and Barnabas' carefully crafted authority began to crumble. He forced a smile, trying to regain control. Sister Blessing, your breakthrough is coming. Patience is a virtue. Patience won't pay my rent, Papa, she shot back. The tension grew louder as Barnabas signaled to the ushers to lead her out. Just as Barnabas tried to recover, Eunice struck. She had connected her camera to the church's projector system, and with a simple press of a button, the screen behind him flickered to life. At first, the congregation thought it was part of the service. Then they saw the footage. The first clip showed Barnabas at the river, kneeling before the Marine Queen. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the screen displayed the serpent-like figure towering over him. What is this? Someone shouted. The next act, Chidi came running inside the church, the so-called blind man, laughing as he admitted to being paid for his role. The congregation erupted in confusion and outrage. Barnabas, his face draining of color. Who dares to? It's over, prophet. Eunice shouted from the back, stepping forward with the golden chalice in hand. This is the truth about your miracles and your so-called divine connection. The congregation stared, first at Eunice, then at Barnabas. Mama Blessing, being dragged away by the ushers, stood gallantly, pointing an accusatory finger. Papa, is this why my goat hasn't brought me blessings? You've been giving it to marine spirits. The church descended into pandemonium. Some members rushed toward the stage, demanding refunds for their offerings. Others wept openly, clutching their mirrors and holy oils as if they had been cursed. Akpan, realizing the gravity of the situation, tried to calm the crowd. Brethren, please. Let us remain united in faith. Papa can explain. But Barnabas was too stunned to speak. The golden chalice, the video proof with the goat brought by Mama Blessing, and the fake testimony uncovered, they were too visible to hide at an instant. And soon, the whole press in the city will come for him. Amid the chaos, Barnabas slipped out a side door, his robes billowing behind him. Akpan, ever loyal, chased after him. Papa, wait for me. Don't leave me with these people, they're angry. Barnabas didn't reply. He ran toward his mansion, his mind consumed with fear. He had built an empire on lies, and now it was crumbling before his eyes. The congregation remained in turmoil as Eunice stood firm, the chalice still in hand. This is just the beginning, she said, her voice steady. The truth will set you free. And so, the once mighty prophet of Jumbo City began to confront the reality of his downfall, even as Eunice prepared to release her story to the world. Jumbo City was in uproar. The expose spread faster than wildfire, reaching every corner of the city and beyond. Social media was flooded with hashtags like #PopRevelationExposed, #ChaliceOfDeception, and #MarineProphet. At the heart of the storm was Eunice, hailed as a hero by some and vilified by others. Meanwhile, Barnabas had retreated to a small, dilapidated safe house on the outskirts of Jumbo City. The once glamorous prophet now wore a plain shirt and trousers, his gold chains replaced by a nervous stick of rubbing his hands together. Akpan, he muttered, pacing the room, why didn't you warn me about that journalist? Akpan, sitting on a creaky chair with a plate of jollof rice, looked up. Papa, I didn't know she was a journalist. She said she was from the media team. Barnabas groaned. The media team doesn't even exist. You're the media team, Akpan. Akpan shrugged, stuffing another spoonful into his mouth. Well, maybe the Marine Queen can fix this. At the mention of the Marine Queen, Barnabas froze. His eyes darted to the river visible through the window. No, Akpan. She's the last person I need to see right now. And so, the truth came to light, shaking an empire built on lies and reminding us all to question what we blindly believe. But this is just one of the many stories waiting to be told. What will happen next? Who will rise, and who will fall? If you enjoyed this gripping tale, make sure to like, share, and leave a comment with your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe to Savannah Storytime, where the stories never stop, and the lessons always stay with you. See you in the next story.